I beat Pokemon Emerald without ever healing. This means no potions, revives, Pokemon centers, or PC boxes. It took me over 6 months and over 130 hours of playtime. Here's how I did it. I start off the run and name myself Mad K, and since you can't name your rival legitimately in these games, I'll just be calling my usual rival, May, Bad K, so she'll be eternally worse than us. And so now I continued into the woods north of Little Root Town and came to my first major choice of the run, my starter. And there was really only one right answer, being Mudkip, who was an absolute beast having 2 fantastic types in ground and water. Now, shortly after was the first problem of the run, the level 2 Zigzagoon right after the starter choice. Now, to ensure the best possible outcome for the rest of the playthrough, I had to pretty much get this battle to go flawlessly. And that's a bit harder than you might think. But this challenge is not supposed to be about resetting over and over until we get lucky enough to continue. And while we still do that a fair amount throughout, I wanted to find other strategies and really get creative with how I played this one. So I went on the next attempt and got hit by 2 tackles, bringing me down to 13 HP. This made me realize that just 1 tackle would bring me down to 17 HP, which I would settle for. And so on the very next attempt, that was exactly what happened, taking out the Zigzagoon and allowing me to finally make some progress. But another thing I was actually very concerned about is the lack of power points. Now, when you go into a Pokemon Center and heal there, it heals 2 things, your health points and your power points, the things that indicate if you can use a move and how many more times you can use that move. So health points were not necessarily a problem right now, but power points were a major problem, because if I ran out of PP on a move, it would mean I could never use that move ever again. But now that we had the first battle of the challenge under our belts, we went back to the lab with the professor and named our little Mudkip Fishy. Then we made our way even further north, avoiding a few trainers in the process, and to Oldale Town. Next up was the first rival battle of the challenge with Bad K, who has a Trico. And one thing that I would like to mention is that you may notice that my Mudkip was fully healed during this battle. Now that is because there are 3 times that your Pokemon are forcibly healed in this game. The first being right after that past Zigzagoon fight that we had just beaten, and I will mention the other 2 when we get closer to them and when they are relevant. However, first we had to get past Bad K, who has a Trico. And usually these battles are meant to be very even, trading hits with your rival and keeping you on the edge of your seat. And we don't get healed after this battle for quite some time, so I really had to play this perfectly. And the first try, I actually lost. Alright, take 2. Okay. The next try I succeeded in defeating the Trico, but was taken down to half of my HP in the process. So I decided to reset until I was able to defeat it by taking just 1 hit or less, which would take me down to about 15 HP to work with. Okay, that's doable. I think that's completely fine. Only 5 damage. I think I'm gonna take that. I think that's fine. After that battle, I made my way back to the professor's lab in Little Root, where we get a Pokedex and some Pokeballs, one of the only items I can actually use in this playthrough. Upon leaving the lab, my mom meets us outside and gives us some running shoes. We then carefully start our way back north, avoiding as many Pokemon as possible and battling only the ones I was sure wouldn't damage me. Let's go! Let's go, dude. No damage, wild fight. Of all the Pokemon that I had access to so far in the game, being on routes 101, 102, and 103, there were just 2 Pokemon that I could encounter that had no attacking moves, making them safe for me to battle and grind up against. Them being Seedot, who never learns an attacking move other than Explosion, and Ralts, who doesn't learn Confusion until level 6. Ralts has a 4% encounter rate at this point in the game, and Seedot has a 1% encounter rate, meaning it wasn't exactly easy to grind up at this point in the game. Now, I was able to grind up against these low-level weak Pokemon until I reached level 7, when I went on to progress a little bit more and hit yet another roadblock. Youngster Calvin and his level 5 Poochyena, who only knows Tackle and Howl. It was a 50-50 chance. Barring a miss from its tackle, it had to miss a tackle and howl twice in a row if I wanted to beat it without taking any damage. And after admittedly a few attempts, that was exactly what it did, allowing me to move on with my 18 HP. After that, there wasn't really much that happened of significance for a little bit. We made our way to Petalburg, met our dad, and watched Wally catch the 4% Ralts encounter that I had been struggling to find earlier. Thanks, Wally. And meeting this cool guy in sunglasses. After that, I went north to Route 104, where there is one of the most essential parts of this run. But before I tell you, if you aren't subscribed yet and are enjoying the content, make sure to do so as it helps me out so much. But anyway, On Route 104, there are berries. Berries are the only way that I can do a lot of things in this challenge. They are the only way I can heal status conditions, the easiest way for me to heal PP, and the only way I can heal HP, via oran berries or citrus berries. This berry patch was game-changing, and I had to conserve all the berries I could get, because I do these challenges on emulators, meaning the online multiplayer and clocks in the games don't work. So I couldn't plant or buy berries, I could only use the ones that were initially planted, meaning I had to use them very wisely. After picking my berries, I continued north up to the Petalburg Woods. In the first patch of grass I went in, I encountered a Taillow, who I felt would make a good addition to the team, as it was fast and learned Tackle and Quick Attack pretty early on, which have good PP and okay power. I caught it and named it Birdbrain. Then me and this scientist dude got jumped by these Team Aqua guys, who were not as much of a problem as I thought they would be. Their Poochyena used Howl and Sand Attack over and over, allowing me to beat them with ease. Apparently in this forest I went a little crazy with catching Pokemon, because I went off and caught another Pokemon, a Shroomish that I would name Shroomy, because Breloom is another fantastic Pokemon with grass and fighting types. After that, I just continued on through the rest of the forest and came out to Route 104, where I got more berries, but more importantly asserted my dominance by defeating Rich Boy Winston, allowing me to make it to Rustboro City at last, the town of the first gym, and just immediately made my way in, because I at least wanted to grind against the gym trainers before taking on the gym leader. After beating all the trainers, it was time for Roxanne. Her two Geodudes were very easy, going down to a water gun each. Her Nose Pass, on the other hand, was another story, as it would use Harden to build up its defense until our water gun did very little damage, so we needed a new strategy. And honestly, I didn't know what that strategy was. My first thought was to use Shroomy in the battle, but quickly learned that there was no way I was going to get him to a high enough level without exhausting all of his PP. And the same problem stood true for most of this challenge. So I decided just to throw myself at the battle for over an hour, when finally I got an outcome that I was somewhat happy with and could recover from. I get past the Geodudes easily when she sends in the Nose Pass, and I hit it with a water gun, taking about a third of its HP off. It hardens, allowing me to hit it again before it can hit me. Now it was in the red, and its Oran Berry heals it, when unfortunately she potions it back up to almost full HP. I then water gun and mud slap it down to a range I thought I could KO it with a water gun from. She used another potion? What? I then get it back to the same position as before. It misses a Rock Tomb, and we end it with a water gun, winning me the battle. But could I do it better? You know what, I think I'm going to take it, and I think I'm going to work with the Oran Berries that I have to heal up Fishy as much as I can. And even though I had won the battle, I did not feel like a winner. I had used most of my HP in the battle, and what seemed to be an adequate amount of PP. But I decided to work with what I had for now, and figure things out as I went along, and for now, this was going to have to do. Upon making my way out of the gym, this guy just gets robbed by another Team Aqua Grunt, and of course we have to deal with it. So I make my way into the next route and get into a battle with youngster Joey and his Machop, who I easily defeat, causing my Mudkip to evolve and learn Mudshot in the process. Then, while running through the very same grass, I encounter a Nincada, who I figured may be useful as a Shedinja, so I catch it and name it Relic, even though I never actually use it. Now, here's an interesting one. In Emerald, you have to go through this little cave and get a Wingull named Pico back from this Aqua Grunt. Now, I had a bit of an issue. It was that my cave looked like this. Oh god. I cannot see a thing. That is horrible. Now, this cave is supposed to look like this, but clearly that is not the case for me. So it turns out that my game was actually bugged, and the caves like this, and many others, I would not be able to see in. And considering that this was my first time playing Pokemon Emerald, I had no idea where to go. And so I just looked up a map and zoomed in really far so I could see every single tile, and very carefully made my way to the Team Aqua Grunt and Pico. I pretty easily then beat him and got Pico and the Devon Goods back from Team Aqua, and made my way out of the cave, because I had some grinding to do. You see, when you return to Rustboro City, you give the Devon Goods back to the guy who got them stolen from, and then make it into a building with his boss who heals you. No battling in between. So I took this opportunity in full to use all the PP on all my moves and grind up my team as much as possible. Because this is one of the only chances I would get, because after this free heal there was just one more that I could take advantage of. And after all of that grinding later, I'm at a point now where I have grinded the absolute heck out of my entire team, and they cannot use any more moves. So after exhausting all of the PP on all of my moves, I saved the game and gave the Devon goods back to the guy that got them stolen from, and headed in to meet the president, get the Pokénav, and get one of the most monumental parts of the run, my first free heal. Alrighty, we have gotten our heal. Upon leaving, I get challenged by Bad K outside, which I was quite honestly not expecting. But now that my Pokemon were fully healed, at least for now, I was able to beat her with relative ease. After that, I backtracked through the Petalburg Woods and to Mr. Briny and Pico's house, who takes us to Dewford Town where the next gym is. After arriving in Dewford and grinding up a bit on the fishermen throughout the town, I was finally ready to at least make it through the gym and to Brawly, the gym leader, which I did with relative ease, and expected Brawly to go pretty well too. I had Bird Brain and his flying type attacks to deal with most of his team, or so I thought. Now his Machop and Meditite were easy OHKOs, but his Makuhita survived with just enough to fire off an attack of its own, a Vital Throw, doing half of my HP, which clearly was a major problem. However, after just a few more tries, like I said, I took down the first two easily, OHKOing them both. Oh, by the way, OHKO, OHKO, stands for one hit knockout, so whenever I say that, that is what I'm referring to. But this time, the Makuhita used Bulk Up instead of attacking, allowing me to win the battle unscathed and get the second badge, as well as growing Bird Brain to level 22 when it evolves into Swellow. After beating the gym, I made it to and through Granite Cave, or I guess just further in because you never actually come out the other side. But anyway, we meet Steven inside, who I gave a letter I had obtained earlier, and then made it out of the cave, when I made it back to Mr. Briny, who takes us on his boat to the next town, Slateport City. Then I went to this ocean museum, where we will find another massive part of the run, because this is the last free heal I will get, ever, so I had to make it count again. However, unlike the last, there was a battle in between the time I would be able to grind and when I would get healed, so I had to leave just enough PP to deal with the battle and use enough to ensure I get my Pokemon to a high enough level. When after finally running out of PP on all of my Pokemon, with the exception of some Absorbs on Shroomy, which will be crucial to have later on, and I needed to save a few for this battle, I was able to get my team up to a high enough level and defeat the Aqua Grunts with Shroomy. After I had won the battle, it was finally time for the final heal of the run. Okay, so our team is back fully healed, chillin'. I left feeling more confident than ever. With my team fully healed and grinded up, I made my way to the next route, where there is yet another rival battle, which was pretty straightforward. Wing Attack the Wingull, Water Gun the Slugma, and Wing Attack the Grovyle. Once I made it through the rest of the grass patches on Route 110, I had made it to the next town, Mauville City, which is actually the most important city in the game, because it housed the Pokemon Daycare. Now, the two things that I cannot get back right now, and have to be super conservative over because of my inability to heal, are PP and HP. Now, what if I could level up and grind without using either of those things? Now that is where the Daycare comes into play. The way that the Daycare works is that for every step you take, you gain 1 point of EXP, meaning that I had a way to grind my Pokemon without having to lose HP or PP, the two things that mattered to me the most. However, there was just one problem with this, which I'll mention later. But for now, I just entered the next gym, the Electric Gym, which should be pretty easy because I have Fishy in his Ground-type moves, right? Well, the Voltorb, Electric, and Magneton for that matter were all trivial, as expected. But not so much for the Manectric, because it lived on what had to have been 1 HP. So I had to come up with a new plan, and that was just to level up 2 more times, which allowed me to take just enough damage for me to be comfortable tanking a quick attack from it and landing another mud shot to take it out, only taking a little bit of damage in the process. Once I had beat the gym and got out of there, I went into one of the houses in the town when I found the Rock Smash guy. No, really, that's his name. who, what do you know, gives us the HM for Rock Smash, which will be crucial for us long term, but was also important for us now, short term, as an attacking move because it didn't break like TMs do, allowing me to teach it to as many Pokemon as I want, and as an HM to actually progress in the game. So I decided to try to teach it to Fishy and get rid of Mud Slap because its 20 power was just not good. But before I did, I wanted to use those last 10 times to wear out the PP, ensuring I wasn't wasting any moves whatsoever. So after a little while of grinding later, Mud Slap had 0 PP, and I taught Fishy Rock Smash, a brand new move with a whopping 15 PP. Next, I proceed north where I use Rock Smash to break the boulders in the way and progress to the fiery path outside this volcano, and go through it, to the other side where there are more berries, of which I pick. But they weren't Leppa, Orin, or Citrus berries, which were the ones I really wanted, the ones that let you heal HP and PP. When next I started onward through the rest of Route 112. Upon making it through the next route and getting to Route 113, I decided to backtrack before going any further, because I wanted to add another Pokemon to my arsenal, a Machop, who I would catch with a Great Ball and name Flex Tape, so I could have moments like this. With the power of Flex Tape, I'm gonna beat the next gym! Once acquiring my new muscular friend, I made my way through the rest of Route 113 and to Fall Arbor Town, where I would immediately pass straight through and continue on to the next route, where it eventually would lead to Meteor Falls. Before continuing through Meteor Falls anymore, I grinded up my team a bit more with the Daycare, and in doing so, got my main team up to about level 40. And because your Pokemon will not evolve in the Daycare, I went off and grinded for one more level on Fishy so he would evolve into a Swampert. But remember when I said that there was just one problem with the Daycare? Well, that problem was that putting your Pokemon in the Daycare heals them, the same way putting them in the PC does. Now, I didn't notice this because the only other time that I had used the Daycare to grind up was to grind my team right after the last free heal, so they were fully healed anyway. So I had inadvertently healed my team without realizing it, and I was already 30 hours into the game. So I implemented a rule, saying that if the Pokemon I wanted to grind up in the Daycare was already fully healed prior to putting them into the Daycare, I could grind them like normal. But if they had even just one hit point of damage gone, I couldn't grind them. Now for the time being, I decided just to treat this as an extra free heal, which I felt was fair because this run was already super hard as it is and didn't really want to redo 30 hours of gameplay. And so once I had my team in a state I could continue in, I made my way back to Meteor Falls, where I am met by both Team Aqua and Team Magma, who basically do a bunch of complaining about each other right in front of one another, and then Team Magma leaves and so does Team Aqua, allowing me to progress through Meteor Falls. Next up, I make my way back to the base of Mount Chimney and take the cable car to the top. Once I arrived, I begin to take out the slew of Team Magma grunts and make my way to the Magma boss, Maxie, who challenges us to a battle, and with my main strongest Pokemon that also just happened to evolve, and as a water ground type, we very swiftly dealt with his fire types. Once Team Magma was dealt with, I ascended down the mountain and went to Lava Ridge Town, the town of the next gym, the Fire Gym. And much like Maxie and all of Team Magma, I expected this to go pretty well. However, when I entered the gym, it looked like this. What is this? Now, similar to the cave from before, I had to deal with this bug that essentially blinded me in places like these. However, the cave earlier was very simple. This was a gem puzzle, which I had to solve completely blinded. When after a long time of being completely blind and admittedly very confused, at last I made it to Flannery, the gym leader who sends out her first Pokemon, her Numel, who we absolutely obliterate with a water gun. Next up is her Slugma, who has the same fate of a water gun. Her Camerupt was similarly easy, taking just another single water gun, and her Torkoal went down to a Muddy Water, beating the gym and getting the 4th badge from Flannery. After getting the badge, I begin the trek back to Petalburg, which means going all the way back through Mauville, and the route prior, and to Slateport and to the beach, where I hop on Mr. Briny's boat and sail all the way back to Dewford. From there I sail back to the route just before Petalburg, and then finally back to Petalburg. And the reason I needed to get back here was because it is actually the location of the next gym, the 5th gym, where the gym leader is actually my own dad, the normal type leader, and this was what we had caught Flex Tape for. And my naive self thought that going into this gym it would be a breeze. This was not the case, because the first trainer had just one Pokemon, a Delcatty who I used Rock Smash on as it was super effective, just to test the waters and see how much it did. and it did less than half of its health. And considering my only solution to these Pokemon was Flex Tape, and that he was almost 15 levels higher than it, this was a major problem. So I reset it, and tried the trainer again, but this time I planned to use Revenge, which was a much more powerful and I thought would be sure to KO. But somehow this time I was slower than it, and it got off a Shockwave, dealing a lot of damage to me, and this was just the first trainer. So, I needed a new plan, and that plan was to go all the way back to Mauville City to do even more grinding on Flex Tape, because he was completely healed. But before I put him into the daycare to grind, I got him one more level in battle to evolve him and learn Cross Chop. A crazy good move, but had just 5 PP, meaning I could use it only 5 times ever. Now, after a while of grinding later, Flex Tape was level 50 and ready to take on the gym. And so I went back in and absolutely decimated that freaking cat. And next up was the defense room, who had a Wigglytuff, who I took out with just one hit of a Vital Throw. And made my way to the next room, the Strength room, who had just a Zangoose, who I took out in one hit with another Vital Throw, taking out all of the gym's trainers and finally making my way to Norman. And so I challenged Norman to a battle, who first sends out his Spinda, who I actually led with Fishy for because Machoke is unbelievably slow, and on the attempt prior got outsped by literally every single one of his Pokemon. So I led with Fishy to outspeed the Spinda and KO it with a Muddy Water. I then swapped to Flex Tape for his Vigoroth because Fishy can't KO it with one hit, but Machoke can. So I tank a Slash and finished it off with a Vital Throw. The Lanoon was much easier, so I used Fishy to tank a Facade and Muddy Water it to wash it away. And lastly was his Slacking, who I go into Flex Tape for one last time and outspeed it, KOing it with a Cross. We lost 1 PP that entire battle. Everything else was flawless, winning what was possibly the hardest gym battle yet. When, upon leaving the gym, we are met by this guy, who gives us the incredibly important move, Surf. I then almost immediately teach it to Fishy to replace Protect, because I felt that the extra PP that Water Gun provided was too valuable for weaker opponents, even though we will have a way to get Surf's PP back later on. Next, I actually decided to catch another Pokemon, and since the next gym is a flying gym, I decided to get an electric type. Now, the electric type that I went with is Electrike, as it's easy to find and relatively easy to catch. So we just had to go all the way back to Slateport City. I then found my Electrike and caught it without dealing damage to it, which is actually very important. I decided to name it Skystrike, because in the flying gym, he will be doing a lot of that. After obtaining one of the final pieces of the team, it was time to make it all the way back to Mauville yet again, which meant surfing all the way back, going through the forest, and through every route prior to get there. This made me realize how much I really needed Fly. However, once we got there, I talked to Watson to get the basement key, which will be important later on. But remember when I said that not doing damage to Skystrike when I caught him earlier was important? Well, this is why. Because it would allow me to grind him up, catching up to the rest of the team with ease, without having to use an Oran or Citrus Berry to heal him up that little bit, and in no time he was level 38, caught up to the rest of the team. I then proceed north to Route 119 and through the tall grass when I make it to the Weather Institute, which is absolutely full of Team Aquagrunts, who were all pretty trivial as I was relatively overleveled and able to OHKO all their Pokemon. The problem came when we had to face Aqua Admin Shelly, because her first Pokemon was a Carvanha, who I used Revenge to take out, but it had Rough Skin, which damages you if you use a move that makes contact. But Surf is a special move and doesn't make contact, so I switched into Fishy to use Surf on the Carvanha. Her next Pokemon is a Mightyena, who confused us with Swagger. And what would you know, I hit myself in confusion and had to try again. This time I got luckier and just took a bite for 7 damage and KO'd the Mightyena. But for a regular trainer fight, this was actually pretty tough. I made my way out of the Weather Institute and got challenged by Bad K soon after, who was a joke, OHKOing all of her Pokemon with ease shortly after I found myself in Fortree City, the home of the next gym, and why we had caught Skystrike. However, I was looking into his moveset, and he really has no consistent electric move. The best option is Thunder, which has just a 70% accuracy. So, I came up with a new plan. Remember that basement key I got from Watson? Now the move I really wanted to get on Skystrike was Thunderbolt. With 100% accuracy and 90 power, it was perfect. But Manectric doesn't actually learn it. So I decided to get the TM, which Wattson gives you after completing the quest in New Mauville, which you get to via the basement key. So that was what I did, and once I made the trek back to Fortree City and on the way evolving Skystrike, I was ready to take on the gym. However, before challenging the gym, I had to move east to Route 120 and meet Steven on this bridge, where he gives us the Devon Scope, which will finally allow me access to the gym. Upon entering the gym, I immediately used the TM for Thunderbolt that we got earlier on Skystrike. The only reason I hadn't used it prior to this was that I wanted to make sure I didn't use it before the gym to save as much of that 15 PP as possible. I replaced Roar because it was pretty useless and we were ready for the gym. I get through the gym trainers with ease, only battling a few of them when I make it to Wynonna, and this is going to be a long one. I go in on attempt 1 and lead with Skystrike, taking out her Swablu with just a Thunderbolt. Next is the Altaria, by far the biggest threat, because my Thunderbolt would do just half of its HP, but it had an Oran Berry. So it would heal a bit of its HP after my attack, meaning I could not KO it in 2 hits without a crit, or using Thunder, so that was what I did. It did about 3/4 of its health and allowed for the Oran Berry to only heal it to about half HP, so a Thunderbolt would take it out. But that is if and only if it doesn't absolutely decimate Skystrike with an Earthquake. So I went back in and realized that Fishy is not weak to ground, so Earthquakes would not do nearly as much damage to him at all. So that was what I did, letting me KO the Altaria in just 2 hits and only taking 16 damage in the process, which I would be fine with, if that was it, but of course, it isn't. Next up was the Tropius, which was not really a problem. I came just shy of a KO with Thunder when she healed back up, but 2 Thunderbolts later it went down. Next up was her Skarmory, which was entirely another story, and one that would likely mean one of our team members taking a lot of damage. So I went into Flex Tape because I valued my other team members too much. I used a Vital Throw and was hit with an Aerial Ace, which did a lot of damage. But at this point, not having that damage beyond Fishy or Skystrike was all that mattered, when finally I finished it off with another Vital Throw. I don't think I can recover from that amount of damage, in which case I think I'm going to have to just reset. Dang, bro. That sucks. I was really hoping that would be the one. I actually thought it was. It felt like I was so close, yet still just so far away. So after my experimenting with Fishy and Skystrike, I came up with a foolproof strategy. First up was to KO the Swablu with a Thunderbolt. The Altaria was next, which I had a few ways of getting through. First was to use Thunder and hope it hits. If it hits, then hope for a crit. If it didn't crit, hope for Paralysis. If no Paralysis, then hope it uses Dragon Dance, and outspeed next turn, KOing it with a Thunderbolt. If any one of these things went right, I would win without it hitting me with an Earthquake. When finally one of them went right. The first of these many outcomes to go my way was the crit off of a Thunder, OHKOing the Altaria. Oh! It crit! Yo! I don't even know if it crit. It had to have crit. There's no way it didn't crit. It wasn't over yet though, because there was still another huge threat on the table in her Skarmory, who would do big damage to... Oh, never mind. We crit OHKO'd it with a Cross Chop. The Tropius fell to just a pair of Thunderbolts, and the Pelipper, after hitting a double Protect, fell to just a single Thunderbolt. So with good planning and an insane amount of luck on our side, we beat the 6th gym. Oh, we finally got there. Let's go, dude! I then left Fortree City and back to Route 120, which has to be one of the longest and most annoying routes in Pokemon Emerald. Trainer after trainer, full of these ones that would pretend to be trees and then attack you. Even resetting on a lot of them, I finally came out to Lilycove City. Lilycove City is one of the most important cities in the game, especially for this challenge. The reason being is because of this house in particular, but more on that later. For now, I just decided to challenge Bad K to another rival battle in front of the department store, and she again was a joke. Her Tropius fell to the same fate as Wynonna's, a Thunderbolt, and a Paralysis later it went down. The Grovyle was as simple as a wing attack, Slugma took just a Water Gun, and the Pelipper went down to just a Thunderbolt. However, this left just one problem. I had used Thunderbolt a lot, and at this point it was just at 4 PP, and after the Pelipper just 3. So I really had to conserve what I had left, or use something like a Leppa to restore the PP. But remember when I said that this house right here was very important? That is because this house contains the Move Deleter. This means that HM moves, specifically Surf and Rock Smash, I was able to delete and reteach to the Pokemon because HMs don't break. When you do this, it returns the PP back to the move, which is insanely overpowered. So I went in to delete Surf off of Fishy to reteach it to it and get the PP back, the biggest reason that the move deleter was so important to get to, and... What do you mean it doesn't seem willing? I don't get why it wouldn't work with Surf. I honestly have no clue what happened here, because I promptly tried to get rid of Rock Smash, and it worked. But when I tried Surf, oh no, Fishy doesn't seem willing to forget Surf. But I quickly got over this because there was nothing I could do about it, and went south across the ocean to Mount Pyre, which only led me to another problem. It looked like this again. Honestly, this was one of the most annoying parts of this challenge. In short, I made it through this somehow and beat up all the Team Aqua Grunts, getting the Magma Emblem from Archie, allowing me to return back to Lilycove. But before continuing further, I decided to go back to Mauville to grind up Shroomy for one more level as he still hadn't evolved yet and was full health at the time. Not long after, he reached level 45, learned Giga Drain, and evolved into a Breloom. However, I looked at Breloom's level up moveset and realized that I missed out on a crucial move, Mach Punch at level 23. Mach Punch is a fighting type move with 100% accuracy, 40 base power, and a whopping 30 PP. Which meant if I properly conserved it, it would last until the end of the run. So I flew to Fall Arbor Town, the town of the move tutor, who I found out needs a heart scale to use. So I went even further out of my way to get a heart scale, from the beach on Route 104, and made it back to the move tutor, replacing Poison Powder with Mach Punch. Next was to make it back to Mount Chimney and into the Team Magma hideout, which, thank God, it looked normal, and not like the Aqua hideout. Because of this, I was able to traverse it very easily while battling and defeating Magma Grunt after Magma Grunt. I finally made it to Maxie and then watched him anger Groudon. He just released all the blueness. He just shot up! Maxie then challenged me to a battle, which was a bit rough for Skystrike as he took a bite from his Crobat, doing more damage than I would have liked, but overall it was smooth sailing. I then left the Magma hideout and went over to the Aqua hideout to do the same thing over there. I cleared out the grunts and found a Master Ball on my way. And after these incredibly confusing warp panels, I made it to Team Aqua admin Matt, who I defeated with ease. He then informs me that all of this was for nothing and I have to go somewhere else entirely. So I left the Team Aqua base, making my way east through the waters of Hoenn and finally coming out to Moss Deep City, where the next gym will be. I entered the gym just to see how my team dealt with the psychic types that this gym has, when after dealing with some of the trainers, it was time for Tate and Liza. First of all, this is not like an ordinary gym, as it's a double battle. They first send out Xatu and a Claydol. I use Surf. Oh, I don't have any Surf. Oh. Well, never mind. I guess I'm using Muddy Water from now on. The Xatu is easily dealt with by Skystrike, but because he can't be switched out before Claydol can attack, he gets decimated by an earthquake. I went in on the next attempt with the same plan just to see if I could get luckier, and started by OHKOing the Xatu with a Thunderbolt, and the Lunatone immediately after with a Muddy Water, as well as dealing big damage to the Claydol. She sent in the Solrock, and the Claydol used Earthquake, dealing big damage to Fishy. But Skystrike avoided the attack. So I used Bite on the Claydol and Muddy Water on the Solrock, finishing the battle. And while the damage on Fishy was unfortunate, I figured that I couldn't get much luckier than what had just happened. So I began looking for ways to heal him up. And that was when I discovered the power of this TM right here, Rest. And it just so happens that literally every single one of my Pokemon can learn it. So I taught it to Fishy because he was the lowest and the most important member of my team that needed to be full health. So I went into the grass on Route 103 and fought a Poochyena so I could use Rest to heal up Fishy. And then promptly got hit by a tackle from Poochyena because I'm dumb. So I woke Fishy up with a Chesto Berry and did the whole thing over on a Zigzagoon, who only used Growl instead of Tackle. Now that my Fishy was all healed up, we went to meet Steven at his house to get the TM for Dive. I then taught Fishy the move Dive and got rid of Muddy Water, opting for the dramatic increase in PP of Water Gun instead of the power that Muddy Water gave. I then made it out to sea and dove underwater, only to find this. What the heck is this? So I again looked at the map and found out that when you surface after using dive, there is a split second that the water actually looks normal. So I used that to my advantage to make my way into Sootopolis City. And since I can't actually do anything there yet, I just left immediately to try to find the seafloor cavern. And as you may have guessed, the seafloor cavern is on the seafloor, which meant more diving. I eventually found it though and made my way to the end where I find Kyogre and Archie, who decide to battle me. His water-type team is a breeze, falling to mainly Skystrike however, and he then angers Kyogre. He's gone! He just shot through the ceiling! Now Groudon and Kyogre are fighting. They're just there. Can I just go up to him? Hey, yo, what's up, fellas? How's it going? And of course it's our job to put an end to that, so we go into the Cave of Origin and talk to Wallace about finding Rayquaza at the Sky Pillar. So I started back out through the ocean and made my way to Sky Pillar. I got up to the top and found Rayquaza, who just straight up boinged out of there like a spring. I left Sky Pillar back to Sootopolis and watched Rayquaza calm Kyogre and Groudon in what has to be one of the coolest cutscenes in a 2D Pokemon game. Next was to take on the gym, which I promptly went to challenge, and I didn't think that I could do it just yet, but wanted to try and see how it went. After completing the gym puzzle flawlessly, I challenged Juan to a battle, and I greatly overestimated this gym. He leads with Luvdisc, who I OHKO with a Thunderbolt, though Whiscash went down to a pair of Mega Drains after using an Amnesia. Celia was a matter of just another single Thunderbolt, and the Crawdaunt took just 2 hits but used a Leer in the middle, so all went well. But this was where I expected it all to fall apart. The Kingdra. I outsped it and hit it with a Thunder, doing about 3/4 of its HP, but more importantly, paralyzing it. The paralysis worked to perfection, and I finished it off with a Thunderbolt. Dude. Manectric is like my new favorite Pokemon. Holy cow. I'm in awe of just how ridiculously well that went. I then left the gym more confident than ever, so I decided to conquer the god of the sky and capture him in a little tiny ball. Because if you don't know, you can catch a level 70 Rayquaza before beating the game. And since I'd never made a rule against legendaries, I decided to catch it and use it on my team for the league. I caught it in the Master Ball I got earlier and named it Snake, and this will be a monumental part of beating the league. I then went to the last stop before the Victory Road, Evergrande City. But before I entered the Victory Road, I decided to check the moveset of my new Rayquaza. And he already knew the move Rest, which was incredible because it meant at any time I could heal him up in the middle of the Elite Four. It also knew Outrage and Fly, which would be the main methods of dealing damage in the Elite Four. Upon entering the Victory Road, I am challenged by Wally to one last battle before the league, and I would be lying if I said this battle was easy. I tried numerous times and it seemed like there were so many things that could go wrong, and sometimes I would hardly get past his first Pokemon, the Altaria. So I went back to the move deleter to delete Dive off of Fishy, and then used a rare candy on him to learn Earthquake. I then returned to the Victory Road with my new power of Earthquake. I KO the Altaria with a Thunder and the Delcatty with a Vital Throw. I hit into his next Pokemon, his Gardevoir, with a Waterfall. It got off a Future Sight and I finished it with an Earthquake. Roselia lived in red HP from a wing attack and used a Toxic. Birdbrain then took the Future Sight from earlier, and Wally unfortunately healed up the Roselia. A quick attack and an Aerial Ace later, however, it went down. The Magneton was next, and honestly, I don't know why I didn't go into Fishy, and probably could have OHKO'd it with an Earthquake. Instead, I for some reason decided to use Shroomy, who got down to half health in the process, but finally took out the Magneton. I decided to take this outcome, however, and made it through the rest of the Victory Road with ease when I came out to the Pokemon League. I then began the big preparation stream, as all of this was streamed live on Twitch, at twitch.tv/madcraft1 by the way. The first thing I went to do was to re-heal the Pokemon that I easily could. Fishy, I just went into the grass to rest in front of a Zigzagoon and then got out of there. I then used a Chesto Berry on Fishy and he was as good as new. Next was to heal up Shroomy, and because he learned so many healing moves on level up, I planned to use moves like Giga Drain and Mega Drain. I found a Loudred who wouldn't use an attacking move on me, and I was able to get Shroomy up to full HP by using draining moves. And because Shroomy was at full health now, I could grind him in the daycare, which would also mean getting all of his PP back. So now my 3 heavy hitters were at full health. I tried to find a way to heal Skystrike, but couldn't as I'd already used my rest TM on Fishy, and he didn't learn any other healing moves. Some other things that I decided to do was teach Earthquake to Snake instead of Extreme Speed, and Crunch instead of Fly, and you will see why shortly. I taught Brick Break to Shroomy in place of Headbutt, and now I just had to grind up Fishy and Shroomy to be around level 70, and I would be ready for the league. After a while of grinding, I got Fishy up to level 76 and Shroomy up to level 68, and made my way into the first Elite Four member, making sure not to save because if I did, and somehow got stuck at any point in the Elite Four, I would have to restart the run. Sydney's first Pokemon, the Mightyena, went down to just a single Brick Break, and so did literally the entire rest of his team. The Absol, Shiftry, Crawdaunt, and Cacturne were all OHKO'd by Shroomy's Brick Break. Next up is Phoebe, who specializes in ghost types, and is the reason I taught Snake Crunch. I one-shot her 2 Dusclops and Banette with Crunch. Next was her Sableye, who lived on what had to have been 1 HP. Then, it was just the most annoying Pokemon in the world. It spammed Double Team, and every time I would try to weaken it, I would miss or leave it on 1 HP. So I reset knowing I could do much better. I swept through Sydney with only Brick Break and easily got back to Phoebe's Sableye, who I used Earthquake on this time instead of Crunch to OHKO. The second Banette fell to a Crunch similar to the first one, and I made it to Glacia, the Ice member, who was the member I was most scared of going into this. I thought about teaching Overheat to Snake, but it had only 5 PP, and it felt too risky to use a Dragon type in an Ice-only battle. So instead, I decided to use Fishy's Earthquake to deal with her entire team. Her 2 Celio and 2 Glalie fell to only a single Earthquake. Her Walrein lived in red HP, which I thought meant she would heal it, but its Citrus Berry healed it just enough for her not to, allowing me to KO with another Earthquake. Next was Drake, the final member of the Elite Four, who leads with his Shelgon and hits a Double Protect immediately before I can Outrage, taking it out. Altaria falls to another Outrage. But this was the end of my smooth sailing, as Snake gets confused after the 3 turns of Outrage. For the Flygon, he hit through and OHKO'd it, but the Salamence was not the same, as I hit myself in confusion when going to attack it. It fired off a Dragon Claw, and as I hit myself in confusion again, Snake fainted. However, everything would be easy if not for the confusion, right? So I set out to find a solution to the confusion I kept getting from using Outrage. So I tried several more times, but would always hit the same roadblock of not being able to beat Drake, because I would hit myself in confusion one of the times it mattered most. So, my solution? The Persim Berry. It turns out this berry makes it so that when my Rayquaza gets confused, it will immediately heal it of its confusion, and I had 8 of them, which was more than enough. So I tried the battle again, and it worked like a charm. After I got confused, it would immediately heal it of its confusion, and I would get to continue. Right after the battle, I replaced the Persim Berry I had used in the previous battle, because I had just the champion left remaining. Wallace leads with his Wailord, and I Outrage it, KOing it. The Tentacruel took 2 Outrages while poisoning me in the middle, but that was fine. I switched into Fishy for the Milotic, as I knew he could take a hit, because I wanted to use a P.E.K.K.A. Berry on Snake to heal his poison. When, after tanking a Surf, Fishy KOs the Milotic with an Earthquake. The Ludicolo is next, who after missing a few Brick Breaks with Shroomy and him full restoring, it finally goes down. His Whiscash falls to just a Giga Drain, which heals Shroomy up to full HP in the process. And finally, his Gyarados. I keep Shroomy in until he goes down to deal some chip damage. I finally go into Snake to KO with an Outrage. We beat him! Yo! Oh my god! It's finally over! Pokemon Emerald, without ever healing a single time. This video has been so long in the making, so thank you so much for watching, and if you did enjoy, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed. But until next time, peace.